So the chapter talks about the steps of disengagement, starting at page 305. The various steps, so pre-announcement is when a person starts to become dissatisfied. I start feeling like I'm not sure I want to be here anymore. I might talk to friends, talk to family, but I really haven't told anybody at the company. I'm not trying to put it out on the table just yet. I'm just in the pre-announcement step where I'm dissatisfied and I'm looking. Announcement is when I might actually give my notice. So I've finally just come to the conclusion, okay, this is it, and I'm going to tell my boss and give a 2-week notice or whatnot. The third stage is the actual exit. So the day has come, the 2 weeks is up, and I walk out the door with my box and all my stuff. And then the fourth stage, they talk about making sense of it afterward. So me making sense as I reflect back on my time with the company and others at the company, trying to work without me there now and, kind of reshaping the culture and whatnot that happens after the whole of somebody leaving. The book talks about how each step can be pretty long in some cases, depending on the position. Some things can take, you might have to stick around for a couple months, not just a couple weeks after announcing. And, that pre-announcement stage can last a long time. I mean, I've been dissatisfied with a job for a year before I ever did anything about it, so the steps can all take varying amounts of time. In most of my experience, once I announced that I was wanting to go, 2 weeks notice is kind of industry standard expected for most companies in our state at least. So that's what is expected. And though I have experienced where I give notice because that's what expected, and then it turns out that the employers would rather just kick you right out the door. So I've had that happen once or twice and have heard about it happening quite a bit, where a company just feels that you're a liability if you're not satisfied being there, so they'd rather you were just gone so you couldn't do any damage. The one thing that the book didn't really discuss is that type of a situation, like where an employer may not want you to have a hang around time or any kind of notice time. Once you announce it, that might be your actual exit time as well. And then from my own experience too, when I was younger, I wouldn't even bother giving notice with my first couple of jobs. I just got dissatisfied, decided I didn't want to work there anymore, didn't go to work that day, didn't show up the next day, didn't call, not very professional, but sometimes all those steps can happen all at once. And from my experience, while it's not professional, the book didn't mention it either. So sometimes that can happen. Because it's not professional, it does burn bridges, and the book did mention that we don't want to. We always want to exit in with grace. You don't want to burn the bridge because you just never know how things will play out long term. Let's see, for the case question, what are 2 concepts from your assigned chapter and 1 concept from the other chapter that are germane to the case? So I was assigned chapter 10, so I am going to bring up a couple things about recruitment and socialization. And then for chapter 9, just wanted to talk about Dante's experience as a group versus being part of a team. So for chapter 10, so Dante has brought into the company through a pretty rigorous recruitment process that I really can identify at least a couple of the stages of the whatever the company's name is, I just lost it. Bedrock. The Bedrock Corporation went through a pretty rigorous recruitment process in hiring people. When Dante did his assessment of that company, that was one thing that he noticed, and then he decided to go through with the process himself. He ended up having 4 interviews. It's really clear that they have identified their objective. They know what they want, and then they do a number of different a strategy that involves several interviews, and then a final interview on campus, face-to-face with the CEO and the VP. So the recruitment process there was pretty well defined and many layered. So I think that they did a good job with that. Let's see, the final interview was on campus with the CEO and VP, and then he was hired, right? And there was no onboarding process or orientation. that was discussed in the case. But in that final interview, I did want to bring up that so they talked about how Dante was really self-assured, and he's confident and self-assured, and they felt that that might be seen by the other employees as arrogance. It's that kind of a situation. In other words, the CEO felt that he was kind of arrogant in his interview, but they really liked him, so they bring it up and communicate that to him and express their need for a team player. They want to know that he's going to be able to work on a team and do well with others. And so he reassures them that he will. I really felt that the CEO bringing that up, that was an open communication that sets an expectation for Dante. So I see that as a way that the owners are choosing to socialize Dante right then. So it may not have been part of an orientation or even any type of a mentoring thing, but it still was something that was kind of a line drawn in the sand right at the beginning. Hey, we need you to be a team player. You seem like you might be kind of arrogant. Make sure you stay aware of that. So they let him know what they wanted from him right out the gate. So then later on with his interactions with his coworkers, there was a bit of entry socialization as well. So they didn't really have an onboarding process, but there was a lot of culture and bringing him in and making him feel friendly, or making him feel welcome because people were being friendly. And that type of entry socialization is talked about on page 299 in the book. So he was able to kind of pick up on the culture, pick up on the norms of what was normal and natural to happen in the company and how people treat each other and whatnot. So for chapter 9, the teams versus groups. So they set the stage for it when they interviewed him, and then at the end, Emmett, the VP, brings it up again about the team player thing. It really feels like Dante is more feeling like he's part of a group working for this company and not so much understanding what it means to be part of a team. He seems to be really focused on his own goals, just worried about his job and his part of the deal. And on page 261, the text explains how a team member should feel, that they should be feeling responsible for their own work, but also being aware of the importance of the collective success. They feel a responsibility for the team's success. Dante didn't really exhibit this very well, and Emmett talks about it at the end, or talks to him at the end there about him roasting the creative team. He didn't want to take responsibility. Dante didn't want to take responsibility for any part of the failure with the creative team on that particular project. And so I feel like he didn't really consider himself as part of the creative team, even though he was, as it talked about earlier in the case. So I think that's it. Thanks, everybody.